After Michigan fired head coach Sharon Moore last night, Kalen DeBoer was immediately linked as the number one candidate for the job. What is your one-word reaction to those Kalen DeBoer rumors? Let me know down inside the comments section. What's going on, Alabama fans? Chris Daughtry back with you guys here on the Alabama Football Report by Chat Sports. And we're going to continue talking about these Kalen DeBoer rumors as his name continues to be linked to that Michigan job. In last night's video, we pretty much did a straight-up instant reaction to those rumors. And, I was pretty emotional about that. It was just kind of right off the, tip of the dome. As soon as it happened, we put that video out for you guys. So on today's video, we're going to dive into it a little bit more. And then on the back half of today's show as well, we'll also talk about what Chris Lowe, insider here for On 3, had to say about these Kalen DeBoer rumors that honestly made me feel a little bit better about the situation here. Before we get into that, though, these were the 8 names that were linked to this Michigan job here for, their head coaching position. Kalen DeBoer, by the way, these were put out by Pete Nakos. Kalen DeBoer was the number one name on that list. You also had Lincoln Riley from USC, Brian Kelly, former disgraced head coach of LSU. I think that one would be hilarious if they end up hiring him. Just a crappy person going to a crappy place at the end of the day. Jesse Minter as well, former defensive coordinator there for Jim Harbaugh when he was there at Michigan. Now is the defensive coordinator for the LA Chargers with Harbaugh there as well. So there is a one-year show cause. Don't exactly know when that ends up running out, but he is a name that people are throwing out there. You also have Missouri head coach Eli Drinkowitz in the mix there. Jedd Fisch from Washington. I think, honestly, Jedd Fisch is probably a legitimate name that might end up actually being the guy that gets this head coaching job. Clark Lee from Vanderbilt is another one out there. And then Kenny Dillingham from Arizona State as well. Got them into the playoffs last year. This year hasn't necessarily been the best run there for Kenny Dillingham. But those were the 8 names initially that Pete Nakos of On 3 threw out there for this Michigan head coaching hot board. Now, when it comes to Kalen DeBoer here, overall, in the past 2 years for Alabama, he's 19-7. And what's kind of interesting is if Alabama ends up firing Kalen DeBoer, his buyout is absolutely massive. But if Kalen DeBoer ends up leaving Alabama for a different job, the buyout would only be $4 million if it happened this year. I think if it happens next year, it drops down to like $3 million or something like that. So, whatever school ends up poaching Kalen DeBoer, if it were to happen there, it wouldn't really be the most expensive thing in the world if they wanted to go down that route. You also have back-to-back top 5 recruiting classes per the 247 Sports composite rankings there. You now have a college football playoff appearance anyways here now against Oklahoma in a couple of days, and you also made an appearance in the SEC championship game. Although you did not actually end up winning that game, you still, in the second year here at Alabama, does end up, making an appearance there against Georgia. So, my take on this, a lot of people want to criticize Kalen DeBoer. I think in 2 years now, he's done a fine job, which you could expect here at Alabama. A lot of people overreact when we lose games and say that he needs to be fired. I think in 2 years now, that is just complete nonsense. They are recruiting at a very high level right now. Something that people said he couldn't do in the South, said they had no ties. He's doing an incredible job right now. They have got buy-in from the team right now. People talk about the run game being really bad this year, and rightfully so. That's fair. But, I also think it is fair to give him time to recruit the kind of offensive linemen, those, smaller athletic offensive linemen, to be able to fit this system. And then if 1 or 2 years, if it doesn't work, okay, fine. You can continue to criticize that. I think that's totally fair. But let him get his players in this system. Just because Nick Saban recruited, 4 stars and 5 stars doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to fit this exact same system. You saw it last year play out with Jalen Milroe being at that quarterback spot, and a little bit this year with Ty Simpson, but really with Jalen Milroe last year. This, college football just isn't the same as what it used to be. Hell, if Vanderbilt is all of a sudden good, things are different in college football right now. The talent level is more spread out. There are more games. You have more games in the college football playoffs. That makes for a longer season. Guys end up getting beat up, and you see it right now with Alabama's roster. They're extremely beat up going into that SEC championship game. And yeah, it's no excuse, but still, the reality is they had a lot of their key starters hurt going into that game. And the SEC is the toughest conference in college football to play on. Play in. If you don't believe me, just go watch the clip of Caleb Downs saying it the other day. He talked about the SEC versus the Big Ten, and he said when you play in the SEC, there are just more games that, take a toll on your body when it comes to game in and game out. So, yes, the SEC is a much tougher conference than the Big Ten or the ACC or, what used to be the Pac-12. So, in my opinion, the critics, they just need to chill. I think he's done a fine job here in 2 seasons. And, I still want Kalen DeBoer to stick around here. I think he's a solid head coach. So I want to hear from you guys down inside the comments section. Before we get into my take here, I've seen a lot of people talk about this. They need to, Greg Byrne needs to, maintain, keep Kalen DeBoer at any cost. Give him a raise, give him a contract extension. Let me know what you guys think. Would you give Kalen DeBoer a raise or a contract extension here in year 2 to keep him away from Michigan? Let me know what you guys think. Y for yes, N for no, down at the pinned comment of today's video. All right, I really don't know if this is a hot take or not. Some people told me it was. Some people told me it wasn't that much of a hot take. When I told it to Tom Downey, he was kind of surprised that I had this opinion. I would not give Kalen DeBoer a contract extension or a raise right now. I think the big question that we need to ask is, does he want to be at Alabama or does he not want to be at Alabama? This is not me saying that I wouldn't care if Kalen DeBoer ended up leaving. I would be pretty pissed, to be completely honest with you. There was an interview a couple days ago. Greg Byrne said that he had this, 30-plus page plan of what to do step by step, hour by hour, of what to do once Nick Saban retires. I don't necessarily know if Greg Byrne has a plan, for what happens when a team tries to poach your replacement after 2 seasons. I just don't think that, an SEC championship appearance and one playoff appearance is, and we still don't even know the outcome to that yet, is enough to give him a raise or an extension after just 2 seasons. Now, if you beat Oklahoma and maybe even Indiana, because they're the number 1 team right now in the first round and in the second round of the college football playoffs, maybe that would make me, change my mind and make me rethink that take, though. But, for me, another big question is Alabama a better job than Michigan? I don't really know what Kalen DeBoer thinks in terms of that front. Right now, I think that's a big question. If it's up to me, I'm a biased Alabama fan. Of course, I would say, yes, Alabama's a better job. But I'm also not Kalen DeBoer. I don't know what his values are and where he stands on that situation. Does he want to start over again after 2 seasons? He was at Washington for 2 years, got them to a national championship game, left Washington to come to Alabama because, it is an upgrade of a job to go from Washington to come to Alabama. Is it an upgrade to go from Alabama to Michigan? I wouldn't say so, but like I said, I'm not Kalen DeBoer. Does he want to go to a program that has been under so many different scandals over the past couple of years? He has obviously had interest in this Michigan job before he was hired as the head coach of Alabama. Michigan can pay more money. Alabama is not going to win a bidding war against Michigan to keep Kalen DeBoer here. Is $87 million over 8 years just not good enough? This does feel more this buzz around Michigan. It does feel more real than the buzz and the rumors around that Penn State job. I want Kalen DeBoer here to stay at Alabama. The big question, though, does he want to stay here at Alabama? All right, we'll continue in just a second with what Chris Lowe had to say about the situation. But first, this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's the holiday season right now. Best time of the year for sports. You have bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while you and I are out here making decisions every single day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which games to watch, there is one place where it feels good to be right, and that, my friends, is on Prize Picks. One of my favorite features on Prize Picks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose the Flex Play where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. But if you want the biggest payouts, go with the Power Play. But no matter how you play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. We got a couple college football games coming up this weekend. The Army-Navy game, America's game, is coming up this weekend, going with Navy quarterback Blake Horvath with more than pass plus rushing yards at 227.5. Also going to go with that Washington-Boise State game. Jonah Coleman, running back for Washington. We're going to go with the more than for him. Just needs a half touchdown. Could be rushing, could be receiving on that front. I love that Prize Picks does the the pass plus rush. It's not just one or the other. You can add both of those things together as well. Love that pick there for Prize Picks. This is what we are going for our 2-pick power play coming up this weekend. Prize Picks is super simple to play. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in today. So download the Prize Picks app and use promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That link, by the way, down in the comment section and the description of today's video. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Now, On3's college football insider Chris Lowe also dropped his thoughts on the Kalen DeBoer to Michigan rumors. This is what he had to say to Bama Online today. Charlie Potter doing a good job writing this little piece up. Chris Lowe, talking about the Kalen DeBoer rumors, said, "I do not believe that he will be the next head coach at Michigan. I do think Michigan will have serious interest in him, and I believe that they did the last time when Jim Harbaugh left to go to the NFL, but Alabama sort of beat them to the punch. And I think that Kalen knew that that opportunity would be there, but decided on Alabama." Here's the other thing I'll tell you. Based on my dealings with Kalen DeBoer over the last 2 years and my conversations with him, I do not believe that he is the kind of person or competitor that would run to a challenge like Alabama and replace an icon like Nick Saban and then run away after 2 seasons. Now, that does make me feel a little bit better hearing that from Chris Lowe. You know, Chris Lowe is the guy, after all, that reported the Nick Saban retirement. And I don't really know why, but I feel like Chris Lowe sometimes kind of flies under the radar sometimes when it comes to being one of the biggest college football reporters out there. You know, people kind of think of the names like Pete Thamel. You know, Hayes Fawcett has, got a lot of credibility here when it comes to recruiting and the transfer portal stuff. You have Dan Wenzel yesterday. He was all over the Sharon Moore stuff last night. You know, you got Ross Dillinger of Yahoo Sports. Those are kind of the names that you hear a lot. Chris Lowe, I feel like sometimes kind of flies under the radar. And somebody, commented on our video last night saying, until Chris Lowe reports it, I am not worried about it. Well, he has officially commented on the rumors here, and I got to say, well, I wasn't, Kalen DeBoer isn't going anywhere. It does make me feel, a little bit better about the situation right now. Make sure you guys are subscribed, by the way, right here to the Alabama Football Report. We'll continue to keep you guys updated on all the news, all the rumors around Kalen DeBoer. We'll also be live, and we'll have some more videos about that Oklahoma college football playoff game here in just the next couple of days. So do not miss out. Join the community and hit that sub button. Now, there's also this talking point about Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. Some people just kind of assume that he's not happy here, and he, said the other day that he was extremely happy before that SEC championship game. Charlie Potter asked him about being linked to that Penn State job and that people say he's not happy at Alabama. He said he was extremely happy, which, was immediately combated by people who hate Alabama saying, oh, well, of course he's not going to say that he's not happy, which I kind of guess is fair, but, to me, they think that he shouldn't be happy or, he can't take the heat after a loss because deep down, the people that are saying that would not be able to take the heat like Kalen DeBoer has. And, they already don't like seeing Alabama succeed. So the only thing that they have to cling to is seeing, Alabama lose Nick Saban a couple years ago. And then 2 years after that, going through another coaching search here. So to me, seems like Kalen DeBoer is pretty happy. And Chris Lowe also commented on that as well. He said, talking to Kalen, then he came and, after he got here, he came in with his eyes wide open. He understood that, or what that scrutiny would be, and, got a real dose of it, going into last season and with the start of that season this season when they lost to Florida State. And while you never know how difficult it is for you or your family until they go through it, I don't think he was 100% caught off guard either. He never said anything or has done anything in my time around him that would make me think he or his family are unhappy. I don't have anybody telling me close to him or close to the situation. I don't have anybody that I trust that thinks he is in any way seriously considering leaving Alabama to go to Michigan. That makes me feel a whole lot better there, coming from Chris Lowe talking about this situation here with Kalen DeBoer. And look, if Kalen DeBoer ends up leaving, I would, be really upset about it, because it would be 2 years now where you would have to end up, going out and finding another head coach. And right now in the coaching carousel, I don't know who you would end up going after. But if you believe in Kalen DeBoer, get down there and like today's show.